you have joined our Understanding 2020 Cybersecurity Regulations webinar with Norcal PTAC, presented by Joseph Moore. And my name is James Forrest. I'm your program coordinator for Norcal PTAC. And before we get started, I just want to go through a bit about our program. Just a heads up that we're going to be video recording this session, and it will be emailed to you along with the slides within the next day. It will also join our archive of webinar resources on our website at norcalptac.org/webinars. So thanks again for joining. Before we hand things over to Joe, like I said, here's some information on what we do and what we can offer small businesses like you. My name is James Forrest. I'm the program coordinator for Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is a bit of a mouthful, so we just call it Norcal PTAC for short. Joe Moore, our very own procurement specialist, will be facilitating today's workshop. So Norcal PTAC is a nonprofit program set up to help small businesses achieve success in the government marketplace. We're funded primarily by the Defense Logistics Agency, the DLA, with extra grant funding from other state and local funds. All of this is good news to you because it allows our services to be offered at no cost to the public. We're hosted by the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation, which is located in Arcata, California. And last year, Norcal PTAC actually helped our clients win more than $268 million in government contracts. So you've come to the right place. All PTACs, not just ours, but all of them provide 3 core services, all of which for us are provided at no cost to you. The first is one-on-one counseling. Procurement specialists like Joe here at any PTAC can help you individually with things like SAM registrations, getting a DUNS number, any of the government certifications, crafting capability statements, GSA schedules, getting your company cybersecurity compliant like we're talking about today, and really any other government contracting topic that you might have interest in. We can help you understand where your business fits in with the government marketplace and how to market yourself. We also have a paid subscription for a program that aggregates all federal, state, local, and even school district purchases so we can provide custom reports to our clients at no cost to help you determine who's buying what you're selling. Second service we offer is that we have regular in-person and virtual workshops like this one on government contracting topics. These webinars and workshops are always free, and unlike our other services, they're open to anyone regardless of location or client status. So you can check out our website at norcalptac.org/calendar for more upcoming events. I believe we'll talk a little bit about that later. And third, we can set up our clients with free bid matching services with daily access to federal, state, local, and even prime contractor opportunities. With this tool, you'll be notified when a bid request is posted that matches your desired criteria, so you can stay on top of the opportunities available to you. So if you have a small business or a pre-venture enterprise located in one of these 15 counties here on the map, then you're eligible to apply for our services. As I mentioned, our main offices is located up in Arcata, up on the top of the coast in Humboldt. But our team is located all over the US, including Los Angeles, Nevada, Washington State, and even New Mexico and Virginia. We brought together all the best expert specialists from across the country to help you succeed. So all of our counseling can be provided remotely by phone, email, or video conference. So, which is especially important now, you don't have to leave your home office to receive the help you need. To apply for Norcal PTAC services, visit norcalptac.org and click on the Apply Now button on the page banner. If you create a profile with a password, fill out steps 1 through 7 and hit save, then you'll be contacted by email typically within 2 business days and assigned to a procurement specialist if you're accepted. As a note, if you've ever worked with a small business development center or SBDC in the northern region of California before, since we share an application portal with them, you'll likely need to email us at info@norcalptac.org. We'll send you a special link to apply. So from the registration list, it looks like some of you are joining us from outside of our service area, which is great. Just do be aware that we are just one of 94 PTACs nationwide, including several others in California. All PTACs provide similar services within different geographic regions. So if you're not located in one of our 15 counties, we encourage you to look up your local PTAC and reach out to them. We've got links here, but you can also just simply search Find a PTAC in your web browser, and it should be the first option. We also partner with SBDCs, as I mentioned before, who provide more general business assistance, like help getting access to loans. Feel free to contact us at the phone number or email address on the banner below, which will be there the whole time, if you need help registering to be a Norcal PTAC client or help finding the nearest PTAC to you. So just some housekeeping things. To prevent noise interference, you're all started off muted today during today's webinar. But if you have any questions during the presentation, do feel free to enter them into the chat window feature in Zoom, and we'll answer your question during the Q&A at the end. Also during this Q&A, you can feel free to unmute yourself once we reach that time, but please don't unmute yourself before then so it doesn't cause a disturbance. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to Norcal PTAC Procurement Specialist Joseph Moore for the main presentation. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, James, for the introduction. I'm Joe Moore. I'm a PTAC counselor with the Norcal program. I'm one of the counselors that he mentions is located away from the Norcal area. I am located in Virginia. So I'm glad to be talking to you today. I thank you all for taking your time to come into this seminar that we're going to talk about changes that are going to affect all vendors doing or desiring to do business with the federal government, DOD and specifically. At some point in time, I think this is going to go to all federal agencies. Okay, I've got a little bit of issue here. I'm advancing the slide. Okay.
You could double click on the full screen there and then use your arrow keys left and right. See if that works.
It's not advancing.
Perhaps we lost remote control. You can either request remote control.
Go ahead and take it back. I'll just.
All right. You can just tell me when you want.
Yeah. Okay. We got it. We got something going now. Let me see if it's working. I'll just tell you, James.
Sure.
Okay. What we're going to be seeing today is a presentation that is a general outline of what is coming in the area of cybersecurity maturity modeling certification. It's general, it's an outline. The specific details to this program are still being worked out, and fully implementation has not taken place yet, and it is all subject to further regulatory action by the Department of Defense. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here we go. Are you aware of the requirements under the Cybersecurity Model Certification Program? The Federal Acquisition Regulation is one requirement. The National Institute of Standards is another requirement. These requirements will take place for a limited number of RFIs and RFPs by October of 2020 for the Department of Defense contracts. So now is the time to become proactive. If my voice cracks a little bit, I apologize. My sinuses decided to act up on me this morning, so I'm trying to get plenty of water going in to calm them down. Next slide, please. Okay. The current FAR and DFAR provisions address the cybersecurity requirements. Federal Acquisition Regulation is a FAR, and you can see the title of it there and the date of effective date of the clause. Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement is a supplement for defense contracts to the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and it has a separate clause number and a separate effective date. A little hint here, if you want to figure out what clause is what, when you're looking at solicitations, if it's 52, it's a Federal Acquisition Regulation clause. If it's 252, It's a Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement Clause. Other federal agencies have their own numbering system. And we also have in this a range of documents, we have the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, NIST, Special Publication 800-171, Revision 2, titled Protecting Controlled Unclassified Information in Non-Federal Information Systems. Next slide, please. Okay, before we go into the clause, I want to read to you a section from the FY 2020 National Defense Appropriation Act, 1648. Requires that the Secretary of Defense develop a comprehensive framework to enhance cybersecurity for all United States defense industrial base firms no later than 1 February 2020. This section addresses potential cybersecurity standards, regulations, matrix, ratings, third-party certifications that prime contractors and subcontractors must meet to successfully implement the current DFARS Clause 252-204-7012. This initiative is a framework to protect sensitive, unclassified DoD information under the control of DoD contractors. It is applicable to prime contractors and their supply chain. Implementation is risk-based approach and tailorable. Contractors of their supply chain compliance will be assessed through future certification and DoD oversight. Next slide, please. Should be on 11, James. Okay. We're finished with 11. We're on to 12 now. I'm sorry. Okay. FAR Clause 52204-21 is in all federal agency contracts because it's a FAR clause. It's in contracts where the contract action is above the micro purchase level. Micro purchase level right now is set at $20,000. It lists 5 definitions, with the first one indicating a covered contractor information system means an information system that is owned or operated by a contractor who possesses, stores, and transmits federal contract information. It goes on to indicate the contractor shall apply basic safeguard requirements and procedures to protect covered contractor information systems. In this clause, it lists a minimum of 16 security controls. Currently, it only requires a self-certification for these 16 security controls. Enforcement has been limited thus far, but it can be enforced. Next slide, please. Now, this is the big clause. This is the one that applies to DoD, 252.204-7012. It's a required clause in all Department of Defense contracts. It's the basis for which subsequent cybersecurity efforts have evolved. Right now, it requires a self-certification, extensive certification of cybersecurity requirements, including compliance with NIST Special Publication 800-171. Major elements in this clause include adequate security, rapid incident response reporting requirements, and flow down of a clause to subcontractors. Okay. Now, this is in the clause also. It talks about 2 major areas of DoD sensitive unclassified information. One is controlled information, controlled unclassified information, information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls pursuant to and consistent with law, regulation, and government-wide policies, but is not classified. And then federal contract information is information provided by or generated for the government under the control of a intended for under the control not intend under the contract. I'm sorry, under the contract not intended for public use. Sorry about that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Other areas of concern about the DFAR clause. First of all, guidance was provided on 21 September 2017 by the Director of Defense Pricing to contracting officers as to how this compliance issue would be evaluated in received proposals. This is proposals that were received by Department of Defense, i.e. specific language indicated in Section L about the offer's implementation of NIST along with evaluation criteria included in Section M. These are standard sections in the contract format. It is my understanding from numerous other webinars and information on this original compliance date is that for the most part, industry did not comply with the NIST 800-171 by that date. This clause is still in all contracts, and compliance is accepted by industry when working for DoD, and there are an increased number of audits being taken place in this compliance issue. Okay, this is an attachment from the Contractors Purchasing System Review Guidebook. This is Appendix 24, which talks about supply chain management process. This is where this specific clause is reviewed in detail as part of the CPSR review process. Item A is a section out of a long paragraph which talks about flow down of the clause to the appropriate subcontractor, and the contractor's procedures assure subcontractor compliance with that clause. Evaluation is conducted in accordance with a series of specific questions included in this appendix. CPSR reviews are conducted when a firm reaches a certain level of government contracts. So unless you're at that level, you don't have to worry about the CPSR review yet. Okay, the next three slides, we're going to talk about directives that have been issued from the Department of Defense. On March 18, DoD issued version 1.02 Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Manual, along with version 1.02 appendices. The manual provides a greater detail about the certification process over the 31 January PowerPoint presentation. And I view that manual as a ready reference desktop guide. The appendices make reference back to the various source documents as to the compliance issues. Next slide. Okay, this is a summary out of Appendix E of the version 1.02 that has source mapping, which lists the source of all 5 processes and the 171 practice models level of multiple sources and reference. CMC level 1, which is only for a FAR clause 52.204.17, has 17 practices listed. When you go into level 2 through 5, you're incorporating the practices of NIST 800-171, and they're additive up to level 5, where at that point in time you're responding to 171 practices to be certified at level 5. Next slide, please. Okay. In the January 31st presentation, which rolled out the cybersecurity manual and the appendices, they indicated that without a secure foundation, all functions are at risk. They presented a chart to where the secure foundation was cybersecurity. On top of that foundation are the 3 main pillars that support a solid contracting program: cost, schedule, and performance. So this is going to be one of the evaluation factors in future contracts. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit here about how the program is being rolled out and how it's going to affect companies down the line. Again, we talked on the previous slide about the solid base. Okay, this is the same thing, helping to identify a solid base. Within the level of certification, cybersecurity compliance, there are 5 levels. Each level has a subsection called practices and a subsection called process. For example, the practices for level 1 is indicated as a basic cyber hygiene, and the counterpart for the process is indicated as performed. Where on level 5, the most sophisticated complex requirements to handling the most sensitive projects list the practice of advanced/progressive and the process as being optimizing. There is a chart in the manual that identifies this in detail. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, again, these are the requirements from which the cybersecurity maturity modeling manual and procedure have been derived from. It establishes an independent certified third-party contractor to conduct audits of DoD contractors. The entire process right now and procedures included in the CMMC are modeled in draft form, since this model has not been incorporated by formal regulation changes, which would be changes to the FAR and to the DFARs. Next slide. Okay. Implementation of the CMMC. CMMC has established an accreditation board. It was formed in January 2020 as a nonprofit organization. It has 14 board of directors. The chairman is Ty Schreiber from the University of Virginia Darden School Foundation. And a memorandum of understanding has been signed with the DoD and this CMMC accreditation body. The CMMC accreditation body will create a third-party assessment organization, which is Charlie 3PAO, C3PAO, which is where the organization where the assessors will receive their training and licensing, and they are only trained and licensed. They're only licensed after they've had a required level of training and passed an examination for a specific level of certification. Next slide. Okay, the assessors will work for the CMMC accreditation board with supervision by the C3 PAO. Assessors will be licensed to a level in assessment that they are permitted to conduct. So in other words, an individual who is licensed to do a level 3 certification will only deal with companies that need a level 3 certification. The intent is to have third-party certifying organization conduct audits and recommend that the firm be certified. The plan is for more than 10,000 professional assessors to audit more than 350,000 DoD vendors over the next 5-year time period. All contractors, prime and subcontractors will be required to be certified to receive or work on government contracts. There are no partial certifications. Next slide. This is a projected rollout schedule. Between June and October, it's anticipated that they will have some limited opportunities both for the request for information and RFPs, with a limited number of contractors being certified to respond to those opportunities. Going forward, you'll start seeing a more robust level of certification being completed. And it is anticipated right now, from what I've heard, is that the certification will only be required in the future, will only be required at time of award of the RFP. At this time, there is no anticipated change in the rollout time schedule. However, that could change. But you can see that what they're projecting for each of the fiscal years going forward. Okay. How is this going to affect small business? Well, first of all, small businesses need to realize that you need to be aware of the content of the FAR and DFAR clause and start working within your company to work for self-certification compliance. When the DFARs and potentially the FARs clause are formally changed, those requirements will go into all new contract actions. And that will be applicable to large, small business firms, prime or sub, and all subcontractors. It is anticipated that vendor compliance will be at time of award of new DoD contracts, not at time of proposal submission. Again, a restate of 252-204-7012 that this requirement remains in place for all active DoD contracts awarded prior to the DFAR change until the contract originally established end date and contractor compliance remains in place. If you are currently working under a Department of Defense contract, this clause is in your contract either in full text or by reference, and you must continue to work toward compliance to this clause. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, certification is all or none. No partial certifications. No certification equals no ability to submit a proposal. No plan of action are accepted. In the current NIST 800-171 procedures, a firm could submit a plan of action for completing of the remainder items. Going forward, there'll be no plan of actions accepted once CMMC is effective. Bottom line, if you work with DoD or in the DoD supply chain, the question is not if you need CMC, but what level you will need and when is it needed. Okay? Realize that this requirement is not going to be fully implemented for some time, but it behooves you as a company to work to get your level certification as quick as possible. Anticipated duration of approval certifications for all levels should be around 3 years. Again, no firms have been trained or certified as licensed assessors. Okay, no one is out there is able to do this, even though they may try to identify themselves as to be able to help you right now. Okay. Firms requesting certification will only be able to use those approved assessors who are fully licensed by the C3PAO. It is anticipated that certification rate charges will be appropriate for the level of certification of a firm. Okay, and these rates should be monitored by CMMC AB. There's a lot of anticipation here and on areas that we cannot speak of as being finalized yet because the changes have not been fully implemented. At this time, is anticipated training and level 1 certification will be provided to PTAC counselors for conducting assistance reviews. PTAC counselors now will not perform the actual certification review. It's just that we will be allowed to be able to, once we're trained and certified by training and testing at the level 1 level, we will be able to help our clients in getting them ready for certification. Okay. Please understand that this is a moving target. Everything in the CMMC is a draft right now. It has not been formalized by regulatory change. Myself and others are not experts in CMMC. The standards have not yet been released and training does not yet exist. Okay, but what small business needs to do is to start getting ready for this certification by understanding and reviewing each of those clauses, the FAR clause and the DFAR clause. Okay. I have enjoyed being able to give you a brief overview of the CMMC program as we go forward. Here's a reference documents of where I pulled all my information from. And this is all going to be provided to you. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to James so we can talk about some questions. Thank you very much for your participation today. I'm sorry about that sinus drainage here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. That was very informative, and thanks everyone for joining. Looks like we have a good solid chunk of time for questions now. So as I mentioned before, there's 2 ways to ask a question. Some of you have already been entering them into the chat window, which is great. When doing that, just make sure to specify your question as much as possible. If you ask a very general question like, how do I navigate this process, we probably won't be able to answer. Or if you ask an extremely specific question about your specific agency, we also probably won't be able to answer that immediately, although we may be able to help you out if you become a PTAC client. So try to be as specific as possible with your questions, and I'll start going through them now. The other way to ask a question is to unmute yourself, which I believe you have the ability to do, and then ask your question out loud to everyone. But I'll start reading here. Robert asks, you mentioned you can help in reaching out to schools, agencies, etc., and finding opportunities in our specialization. We deliver cybersecurity as a service model, but how can we tap into micro purchases, and how can we reach out to potential buyers? Some kind of marketing. How can we do it?
If I'm interpreting the question correctly, it sounds like they want to be a provider of certification. If that be the case, they need to reach out to the CMMC AB at their address here and get registered in their website for potential vendors.
All right, sounds good. And Robert, if you have a follow-up question or a clarification, go ahead and enter it in the chat window, ask it aloud. I will move on here. Oh, Robert has another question. He's asking, CMMC certification is expensive. How can small businesses such as ours afford this? Are there any grants for this?
I'm not aware of any programs for grant right now. There's some discussion going on within DoD as to how this would be covered, but it's not public knowledge, full public knowledge yet.
All right, thanks. Doesn't this only apply to Michelle? Tennyson is asking, doesn't this only apply to those businesses who intend to work with DoD agencies? Otherwise, small business isn't impacted. You might want to clarify that.
Correct. That is correct. Right now, it's only for DoD. Okay, but once the regulation changes come out, we don't know what's going to be in the FAR clause to make it required for other federal agencies. But right now, this process is only required for DoD contracts.
All right. Would you recommend getting NIST SP 800 171 R2 certification first?
That would have to be something that has to be answered on an individual basis, depending what your requirement was to do that. That's where your counselor would have to work with you on that one.
Yeah, for some of you, if you have specific questions like that, once again, we may sound like a broken record, but feel free to apply for PTAC services, especially if you're in our service area. We'll be the ones helping you out. So, Robert asks, I believe it is go to be compliant for all and not just firms servicing DoD. We are in fact reaching out to SMB and commercial sector because security is not something anybody can ignore. Does PTAC help with CMMC certification or provide guidance?
CMMC.
As I indicated, it's anticipated right now that PTAC counselors will be trained and certified at level 1 to provide guidance in getting ready for certification. We will not be doing the certification. And the other question was asked about all agencies. It is anticipated that this will go to all federal agencies. But at this point in time, the requirement is only related to the DFAR clause.
All right, thank you, Joe. Carolina
Hello?
asks, yeah? Sorry,
Yeah.
does someone have a question to ask aloud?
Yes. My name is Nina Mbarpe, and I'm here out of the country. I'm wondering what's the process of being an auditor? Because I think I'm interested. I'm into cybersecurity, and I don't know what is the eligibility to be an auditor or assessor.
If I heard the question correctly, it sounds like what is the requirements to be an assessor? You would have to contact the CMMC AB because they're the one that's running the program.
Okay, CMCAB. CMCAB.
What's the address that's
It
on
was on
the
a,
last slide of the presentation.
yeah, if you take a look at the slide here,
CMMCAB.
Okay.
right here.
All right. Thank you so much.
Carolina has a question now. Carolina asks, just to clarify, as a construction contractor, I understand all of our subs will be required to be certified. However, will our vendors who just supply equipment be required as well?
The way I view it, and this is my interpretation only, it's the entire supply chain.
So all of the vendors as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, there you have it, Carolina. Does anybody else have any questions? Looks like we see one. Oh, Carolina says thank you, so thanks, Joe. I'll leave a little bit more time. I don't see any more questions entered, but they may come in. Again, if typing it out in the chat window is late, cumbersome, feel free to unmute yourself at this time and ask a question directly to Joe and I. All right. Well, all right. I'm going to start wrapping things up here then. If someone does have a question, you can still enter it. I'll get back to you. Just want to go over some of the upcoming events we have. On May 7th, we've got a webinar on how to set yourself up for federal marketplace success. So that's, of course, one of the main things that PTAC does is help you get set up to do good work with the federal government. That's going to be on Thursday, May 7th at 10 a.m. Another webinar is how to access federal contracts with HubZone. HubZone is the historically underutilized business zone certification. And that's on Wednesday, May 20th at 10 a.m. Both of these are completely free, and you can register them on our website at norcalptac.org/calendar. It looks like we have one more question.
I just saw a message. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one more question here. Can you provide any companies that certify NIST SP 800-171?
There's no one certified yet to do anything. The training material is being developed and the certification process has not started yet. There's no companies out there to do any certification in this process yet.
So we're staying ahead of the curve here, but Michelle asks, most of the large system integrators perform this service, i.e. KPMG, Deloitte, etc. That's not a question, but is that comment something you want to respond to for NIST SP 800-171?
Sure. Yes, my apologies.
They may provide the service. They may provide the service, but they're not formally certified to be able to provide that service
For
under
NIST,
this program. Once this program,
800-171. The question was around NIST, Joe. So I think there are quite a few companies on the market that can offer certification assistance for that. Correct?
I have to take your word for it because I'm not aware of it, but it's probably true. They're providing some type of assistance, but they're not formally certified by the CMMC AB.
Correct. CMMC is new, and yes, you're correct in that. But NIST has been around for quite a while, SP 800-171, and there's quite a few companies that offer consulting.
I mean, so they could be providing assistance on getting clients compliant.
This is Robert. If I could interject. From what I heard from the NIST people, I used to be with their within Northrop Group, Northrop Grumman, they had a training on NIST. So from when I went for that, what they told me was there's no certification as such for NIST. It's just an advisory guidance that you can embrace and use it in your organization. And some of the companies are kind of trying to sell it as a service to enable companies to be compliant. There's no compliance requirement for NIST as such. That is what they told me.
It's a framework that's used as a best practice. So
Yeah,
you're right. Yes,
yeah,
you're correct in that. Yep.
You just need to be and the thing is, these big companies kind of what they do is they come out with some kind of a services to wrap around it to help you understand and implement and adopt whatever controls you want to implement within your organization. So that's what many companies are doing, but there's no certification body for it.
Fair. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a reasonable answer.
Anybody else have any questions they want to ask aloud or type into the chat? All right. I will go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again to Joe for giving this great informative presentation. And thank you everyone for joining and making this worthwhile. We're cutting things off now, but I want to let you know that you will receive an email from us shortly coming from our Eventbrite module. This will have a link to a survey, an evaluation survey that we would really, really appreciate if you fill out. Oftentimes we don't get many respondents, but it's really important to us to hear what you thought of today's webinar. And so we can continue to improve our services and make our funder happy. So let us know how you felt. And as promised, there will be a recording of today's webinar as well as the slides used. These will be posted, and a follow-up email will give you a link where you'll be able to find these resources on our website no later than around this time tomorrow. So once again, thanks for joining our Understanding 2020 Cybersecurity Regulations webinar, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.